Okay, looks like we are rolling here. Good morning, everyone. I will call to order the Yamhill County Board of Commissioners formal session for April 25th, 2024. It is 10 o'clock in the morning. And Commissioner Johnston, would you please lead us in the flag salute?
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic that stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. Item C is our calendar session. Is there anything to add to the calendar? You want to do the obligatory reminder about budget week?
Sure. Yeah, just a reminder that starting on Monday at 9 o'clock, will be budget committee meetings for Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. And Monday afternoon or Monday evening at 5:30, there'll be a public hearing that'll be held to take comments on the budget. And so it's going to be a busy 3 days. We're going to spend a lot of time here in room 32.
And I want to welcome our new executive office specialist, Bailey Barnhart. This is her first week, and you picked the busiest 2 weeks, I think, in our entire year to start. So welcome and thank you. All right, anything else for the calendar? Okay, item D is public comment. This time period is reserved for public comment on any topic other than an agenda item, quasi judicial land use matter, or a topic scheduled for a public hearing. I want to acknowledge we did receive a written comment, but if you are here to provide oral testimony today, please come forward if it's on anything but an agenda item specifically. And if you're online, please raise your virtual hand. Okay. Hearing none, we will move forward to our department update. And today we are joined by our county clerk, Carrie Hinton.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning, Commissioners.
Good morning.
I want to ask you before we get rolling, are you intending to stay for BOPTA, for the BOPTA agenda item? Because I can bump
Probably
it up. No, okay. Just want to make sure.
But it is on the agenda today, so you can see that we had another successful BOPTA season. And a big thank you to our BOPTA board members for their help in making sure this is a success every year.
Yeah.
So that was great. So we, a few happenings in the clerk's office. I'll bring you up to speed just a little bit, but obviously the most exciting thing at the moment is the upcoming election. We did have an employee retire this month. She's been with us 25 years, Anita Mills, so we wish her all the best in her retirement. She has, as far as I've been here, there may have been one other person who's worked longer in the clerk's office, but in the 10 years I've been with the county, she's one of the top long-standing employees. So, so we're in the countdown, obviously, to the upcoming May primary election, which is going to be on the 21st. And we have been working diligently to ensure that we have a safe and secure and accurate election season this whole entire year. There's nothing more crucial than ensuring that security, integrity, accuracy, and trust in our elections in Yamhill County. The voter pamphlets were mailed. I'm sure all of you received some of those. And we have been inundated with calls over the last day and a half. And even as of this morning, due to the fact that two candidates for the presidential contest did not file in the voter's pamphlet. Filing a statement, just for the record, filing a statement in the voter's pamphlet is purely your choice as a candidate. So we can't force anyone to submit this information, and we hope that they consider submitting something for the general election voters pamphlet in November. So obviously the process starts long before voter pamphlets and ballots are mailed, but just to give you a little timeline, ballots will begin to be mailed starting next week, May 1st. I anticipate Yamhill County voter ballots going out on the 2nd. They should be delivered to the Portland Post Office somewhere around then. But you should start seeing them towards the weekend. If someone has not received one by the 7th of May, please give our office a call and we will be more than happy to assist you. April 30th is the last day to register to vote, change your party, update any registration information that may have changed since our last election. And for most of us in Yamhill County, the last countywide election we had was our special district election last May. So if you've moved or changed any information, if you got married, it's great to go and check that out. The best place, the most secure place to go and do that is either through our link on our website or straight to the Oregon Secretary of State's website to My Vote. Those can both be accessed online because that information gets to us the quickest. We receive daily updates of activity and we take those and update your voter registration every day. So another reminder too is that ballots must be received by 8 p.m. on election day. The safest, most secure way is to drop them off in one of our secure ballot boxes. We have 16 across the county. In larger towns, we have multiple spots, but we also have drop box site locators. On our website, you can locate a drop box locally, or if you are a commuter and you're happening to be in another county, you can drop it off in one of their secure drop boxes, and it will be routed to the county where you're registered in, and it will be processed then by the county where you're registered in. So that's the safest way. If you do decide to mail your ballot, make sure that if it's a couple days even before election to get that hand canceling stamp. If you don't go in and physically get the hand cancel, then you're relying on the post office machines to get that imprint on your ballot so that we can count your postmarks ballots. So we can count postmarks if they are postmarked by 8 p.m. on election day. So very important. One quick,
Excuse
sorry.
me, Chair, I have a
ahead.
question. So I know there was some confusion last time regarding the postmarks, and some ballots did not have postmarks, and yet there was a confusion in terms of the Portland Post Office and whether and how long. And so that was a concern not only for voter integrity and accurate counting, but a lot of folks had questions about that piece. Can you update us on that?
So postmarks in the legislation that was passed, postmarks it's called postmark, but it's a mark on the ballot. And so even the fluorescent barcode is what we are considering a mark on the ballot. So if any of those things are present, we can accept that if it was received within the 7 days of the postmark timeframe. Because, and the ones that are hand marked on the front, we go by that date. We can also use a barcode reader, but right now, not all counties have access to a barcode reader for the fluorescent barcode. So some of them are having to just go with the fact that you've signed and attested to the fact by signing the back of the ballot that you did cast your ballot and we did receive it within those 7 days. Yamhill County, we have not had a situation where we have not had a postmark that could not be read or could not be identified. So we have not had run into that problem, but I do know there were other counties that experienced some things that happened with the postmarks. And so they had to navigate that a little more in depth than we have had to. Last time, I think the most postmark ballots we even received, most of them came Wednesday, immediately the day after, was 200 during the entire 7-day period. So
Thank you.
it's a very small percentage for us.
Historically, we haven't seen a flood of ballots come
No.
in after it's been that initial 2 days and then it just
Yeah.
drops off. So
Yeah, and really, truly, the Wednesday ones, you can easily tell they were dropped off the day before, and it's
Yeah.
just that leg and getting them on the truck and back
Yeah.
to us.
And the number of ballots out of county are pretty minimal, right?
Yeah, very minimal.
Okay.
Yeah. So quick side note about our website and the things that you can see on there. Kara and I spent countless hours. We now add website design to our resume, but we're not out for hire, just so you know. But we were able to get our website up to speed, get all the links working back in December, and we've been trying to enhance things as we're moving through this process. So be sure to check there for any election updates, any election unofficial results will be posted there immediately as soon as we have those available. But we are still looking at adding more things, making it even more user-friendly, but we've come a long ways. So we're very excited about our new website. So in preparation for the May election, we are busy training staff, training board workers. We don't take for granted that they're going to remember what they did a year ago in processing things. And, you know, there's a lot of the basic training is hands-on, but there are additional things that we go over, just even simple county policies, because these are workers that have been out of the workforce for a while, and they're coming into our environment, and they, you know, they're not aware that, oh, this is something that's prevalent now in offices or just even simple office procedures. We've had signature verification training provided for us, and the gentleman who provided, I believe he used to work for the FBI, so it was a very interesting, we've had this more than once now, and it's been very informative and very helpful to those who do the signature checking, because he has kind of a forensic background, and even though we are not forensic experts, it just helps you realize how people are signing. When you sign at the DMV, you're signing on this tiny little pad, and so you're kind of squishing your letters. If you're signing the back of your ballot, when you're at the ballot box, drop box, and you're on your steering wheel, it's going to look very different, but you can still typically, if it's you, we can still find characteristics that match the signature. So, so that's been very interesting. We have de-escalation training next week for all staff. We also have been having different trainings on suspicious mail and package handling, because that is a known threat. That was something that started becoming prevalent last fall. And so we are still very concerned and very aware of that. So there's a lot of moving pieces, and trying to get everyone focused on what their task is, how to perform it, and what path the ballot should take is very important. We were able to participate in a security tabletop exercise back in February, which was attended by all 36 counties, the Secretary of State's office, and representatives from CISA, which is the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency. Other state and federal partners, including the FBI and the Oregon Office of Emergency Management, also participated. Yamhill County was well represented. We had Chris Roberts from our county IT department and Lieutenant Don Stackpole from the Sheriff's Office. And I just want to say a big thank you to both of them and the departments that they represent, because we couldn't do this without their support. It helped everyone to really think outside the box, and with all those different points of view, it was very informative. And whether you were a large county or a small county, we all learned from each other, and it's helping us better prepare for and respond to cybersecurity and physical threats. As part of this endeavor, a law enforcement guide was developed, and it was already in the works before that, but then many of the people who attended the tabletop exercise were also a part of finishing to develop that that guide. And so it's information that we'll be sharing out. It's pretty extensive, but basically it has all the election related information and laws that law enforcement can reference when they're out observing things. And some of this is stuff that they don't go over in their trainings. So this is something that I am in the process of getting distributed out to all of our local law enforcement ahead of the election. So everyone will have that ready and handy if they were to observe something, or if they were to get a call. So one of the things that we get asked a lot about is board worker safety and turnover. And in Yamhill County, we are very fortunate to have a very solid core group of election workers. Some of these have been doing it for 30 plus years. And so we don't have a lot of turnover, but in the nation and even across the state, there has been a lot of turnover. So in Oregon alone, 33% of the state's counties will have a new clerk, or at least a chief election officer this November election, or this year. And that is something that they did a recent study, and in Oregon alone, 209 years of experience walked out the door with that turnover. And so the median amount of experience these officials have has dropped from about 16 years to about 1 year. So there's a lot of things happening in the election landscape. And we do continue to face increased threats. And as election workers and officials, we're expected to take on more responsibilities, even amid staff shortages and tight budgets. Due to the heightened fear that's being spread, election workers have even begun to question their own personal safety. And that has started to come up even in Yamhill County. We have board workers who have asked, should I keep doing this? And so it is a real thing. Staff obviously are affected. They're the ones on the front lines. They're the one at the front counter. So we have done our best to offer training for a lot of those things. Just how to respond, our incident response plan, we've reviewed that. What would we do if this happened? What would we do if that happened? And we have also increased our security in our office. So you'll notice in our office that there are extra doors. There's controlled access to many of the rooms. We have installed the plexiglass it's getting installed this week in the front office. And that's just for the protection of us and everyone coming and going, just to ensure that we have all of the proactive things done so that if something were to ever happen, which we hope it doesn't, that we're prepared. It's better to stay ready than to try to get ready at the last minute. So we are going to be offering observer training this year. This is something new that a lot of counties have done and are still doing, especially in an even numbered year where you have 2 pretty major elections going on. And what that does is it just helps everyone stay on the same page and the observers understand what they are observing and the chain of custody of a ballot. There's a specific path that the ballot follows to ensure that it passes through every checkpoint along the way. And once it's past all those checkpoints, that is when it actually gets tallied. And the point of checks and balances is to make sure that all the checkpoints are also working. So that is also why we conduct a public certification test of our ballot tally system. So that will be happening on May 7th at 10:30 a.m. The public is encouraged to attend. It's called a logic and accuracy test because it documents and assesses the ability of the tally system to consistently produce accurate results of the voters' choices on their ballot. And as you know, our ballot tally system is a standalone system that is not connected to the internet or any other network. The one that we use is called HART. You'll also refer to it as Verity. And this is public information, what each county uses. And it's on the state's website. And you can find all of the certification information for each ballot tally system that has been certified and approved for use in Oregon. They go through a very vigorous and extensive approval process before being certified. The state has to certify it, and the U.S. Elections Assistant Commission. So it has to pass all of those tests before we're even allowed to implement it for our use. So security in general, like I said, we've made a lot of changes to our physical security, but we've also made we've added layers of security to our processes. And that's just to eliminate any risk that we could be known, or hopefully we have eliminated a lot of the knowns. But we want to be aware and vigilant. And, you know, we like to think that we're Fort Knox, but, you know, at 10 o'clock at night on election night, we are sitting in a room with windows all around us, and people are getting tired. And so we have to be vigilant. We have to stay ready. And so there are a lot of different things that we'll be doing this time around to really just take some of those things into consideration. You know, sending board workers home at midnight when they have to walk out to their car, probably not the best plan. So we've decided already that we are going to not stay till midnight this time. And we'll be right back at it the next morning. So production will not really necessarily stop because after 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock, people get tired. We're not being very productive. So we'll have fresh eyes, fresh minds for the next morning. Tackle all those ballots we get at 8 o'clock. So one thing to point out too is that there's a lot of narrative, broad descriptions of voter fraud being spread. And I just want to state that voter fraud is not widespread. We have never seen any voter fraud that would impact the result of an election in Oregon. The most common thing that we see, especially here in Yamhill County, is that households will accidentally sign each other's ballots. And they just, for some reason, they swap envelopes somehow at the kitchen table. But while this is normally an honest mistake, it's still something that we reach out. It's voter education, letting them know, hey, try not to do that. And we do follow up on each and every single one of those to make sure that if that happened, they're made aware, and also if we can rectify the situation. So if we're able to get both ballots back, we can then process those, because we have 2 envelopes, 2 ballots, you just swapped signing. But yeah, and as far as our voter rolls go, those are updated, like I said, daily with all of the changes and new things. We check for our deceased regularly. We get deceased reports. The state also uploads those reports to us consistently. So there's a lot of different ways that we are maintaining our voter rolls. Obviously, there are things that can fall through the cracks, like if someone moves out of state and forgets to tell us and then just stays as an inactive voter here in Oregon. A lot of times that's what happens, because if they don't vote, they don't respond, or if they had, a ballot that wasn't able to be processed due to no signature or a challenge signature, we send letters out before every major election to notify them that, hey, due to something that happened with your ballot in a previous election, you are now in inactive status, but we give them plenty of time to come in and update. But if they don't ever do that, they just remain inactive, and by then they could have moved to another state. We might get returned mail from those letters saying that, yeah, they're not there. So it's very important to us to maintain our voter rolls so that we can navigate all that and not have to send out, 1,000 letters instead of, I think we sent out, forget how many we sent out, but we sent out a lot in February. So we take many steps to protect the integrity of our elections. Signature verification, unique barcodes, paper ballots that cannot be replicated, and other security procedures are in place across the state. All counties conduct post-election audits by hand after statewide elections. So I know that you had public comment recently about hand counting, and we do hand count in our post-election audits. And we also run our logic and accuracy test again before we certify an election. And once again, that's to make sure that everything was working accordingly, how we expected, anticipated, and that the ballot tally system is still calculating and tallying the votes correctly, and then matching our hand counts to that information just shows again that yes, they are both consistent. We have like election security doesn't start and stop with just elections. So any security that we have in our building is actually starting to carry over into other areas, especially with like people at the counter with passports. We have to be sensitive that everything they're giving us is their personal information. So it's very important that we maintain high levels of security in all that we do. Some of the challenges, not just in elections, but in other areas of the office, is that we have been short-staffed since January 8th, and we're facing budget challenges due to the decline in recording revenue. And that actually, I went back and it actually, we'll talk more about that next week, but it actually was starting to show bits and pieces of that in 2017. We were declining just little tiny bits that weren't very noticeable. We continue to have an uptick of public records requests, and that's to be expected during an election cycle, but we're also seeing additional requests that are not necessarily related to elections. We're still working towards consistent and adequate documentation and training so that all staff are confident in their job duties. Leaving any process or area vulnerable is only inviting risks into the equation where errors are then made. And this could easily be avoided with proper preparations and training. So we're trying to eliminate those as much as possible. You've probably heard about where deed fraud has been, instances of it where it has been detected in other counties recently. So far in Yamhill County, we have not been made aware of any. We have not found any. Unfortunately, this tends to happen after the document is recorded. And so once it's recorded, it's there. We can't undo it. In Oregon, this is not something though that even experienced recording clerks have seen in the past 20 years. And basically a lot of it is just forgery-based deed fraud, but it's also being referred to as seller impersonation fraud, vacant land fraud, and elder real estate fraud. So this is something that has been happening in other states, and many states have already passed legislation or in the process of doing so. And we expect to have legislation submitted here in Oregon. There's a lot of different ways to look at it. Some states are requiring that now instead of just bringing in one form of ID, they're going to require two, and they're going to make people record in person. That's one way to look at it. The other way would be to look at notaries and shoring up that process, because we are having instances where people are cutting and pasting notary blocks onto a document. One thing to note, though, is that in most of the cases that were recently discovered, they were after the fact, but they were done through like deeds.com, or, like it was not through a lawyer's office or through a title company. So there are similarities that we're seeing where we can start looking for those kind of pieces. Our job is to record a document. We're legally required to record a document if it is presented as a recordable document allowed, and if it is presented with the components and elements that are required. So if someone came in and presented a document that had all of those things, there would be nothing that I could say that would actually stop me at this point from not recording it. If I see anything, or if I saw like it looked like a cut and paste or the signatures weren't right, I could then stop and review it. But legally, we are required to record a document if everything else looks normal. So that's how some of these slip through. But we're really hoping to pass legislation to safeguard landowners and put some parameters in place. It doesn't mean that something couldn't still slip through the cracks, but the other side of that too is then if we can pass legislation that would also include, a penalty for presenting a document that was fraud, then there'll be consequences that can be enforced, because right now we don't have that really.
Chair, I have a question. So you see all these advertisements for things like title lock. We had a conversation and you said they might not be as effective as everyone might think, and that might not be the answer.
Right. So we had been looking into that as well with our software vendor that we use for our recording. And the thing that was coming up was that if I were to misspell someone's name when I'm indexing, and you signed up with your name spelled a certain way and I misspelled it, it wouldn't alert you. You have up to, I believe, 5 or 6 choices of variations of how your name could be spelled, but if you don't spell it right, it could not do it. So what we're looking at now is having some kind of identifier. Some people call it a PIN, but it's an identifier that would be on the document that would match to what you signed up for as far as a title lock. And we would match that, and then we would alert you immediately based off of a PIN number, which would be a little more effective because it's been proven that as humans, we don't transpose, numbers as much, especially if it's 4 or 5 digits. So that is one way we could try to avoid that, but there is still a lot of talks around all of that because obviously there's concerns and loopholes through anything, but just getting these conversations started and having the conversation so that we can all put our heads together and come up with at least an initial plan has been very productive, because I think we're going to get at least some safeguards in place to navigate and then build on that, But yeah, it could be tricky if we missed one and here you had signed up for title lock, then we're also looking at, okay, what kind of risk and liability is that to the county? And to the service we're offering.
Hmm.
So, we've talked a lot about a lot of things. Do you guys have any questions? Comments?
So you are going to be doing observing differently this year with the room up front. So how are you getting that out to the public that's interested in observing the election?
So we implemented that back in the December 2022 election, actually.
Okay.
And we did it in May for special districts. We did it for the small election in November. I don't
Okay.
think anyone ended up coming for the small one, but we had it all ready to go.
Okay.
And then this primary will be the first primary that we have had it in the separate room. But we have been messaging that out to all of the coordinators that send observers, and then anyone calling, inquiring about observing. We've also made known to them that we've showed them the room, some of them. Some people have already come by and checked it out. And we have, I believe it's 9 cameras on the big screen TV. We also have information that shows, we have a whole list of what each camera is showing, what tasks should be being performed in those cameras. They're all numbered so
Mhm.
that you can see at a glance what there is. And we'll be going over that in the observer training as well.
Okay.
So,
Great.
yeah.
And security measures, not to talk about specifics, but you have been able to implement all of those to date. So you feel ready to go.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, so far.
Okay. And then are we picking up ballots from the drop boxes daily? Is that a daily task?
It's something that we typically check pretty much every day, especially once they start coming in.
Mhm.
But we try to alternate our schedule due to security reasons.
Okay, yeah. Are there color coded like barcodes on the ballots still? If there's an issue with the ballot, somewhere like purple in the past or blue, is that still a thing?
All of our ballots have the purple stripe at the top
Okay,
for the return envelopes. And that's just something that counties have chosen a color so that when we do get inter-county ones, like if I get one for Marion, I know it's not mine right off the bat.
okay,
But no, there is no other color coding on the envelopes.
okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
All right, any other questions?
Thank you. We know you've been working very hard, so we thank you both. Appreciate everybody on your team.
Thank
No
you.
questions. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. And thank you, Kara, too, for all your work.
Thanks, Kara.
Okay. So we are moving on to our work session today, and we have a continued review and discussion of the ARPA childcare grant options. And we are joined by our Economic Development Director, Joya Goodrip. Welcome, Joya. Morning.
Joya, good morning.
And just to kind of set this up a little bit, we, as you know, we have about $500,000 left in that bucket for childcare. And we had been discussing some options. George Fox University had been on the menu in terms of an option. And since that discussion, I don't know, probably going on a month ago now, there was a meeting with the city of McMinnville and the McMinnville School District about their after-school programs specifically. It started with Kids on the Block and has sort of morphed into Campfire Kids. And there are significant funding needs for that program. I think they have about a year left of funding before it dries up. And then what? And so the News Register has written a piece on this in terms of kind of a call to the community for involvement in working toward a solution for sustainable funding for that. It's a significant program. They serve about 177 families from my notes. And so it's something I think we should look at. And Joy and I have been meeting with representatives from those groups over the past several weeks, including the school board chair and the superintendent of the district. So if you want to just kind of give us a presentation of what we have found and an
Where we are.
overview of it, and then, we can open it up for discussion.
Happy to do so. So just a little bit of background. So the McMinnville School District has been partnering with Kids on the Block, KOB, that's what I'll refer to it as going forward, program since the late 1980s. It was developed by community members, the city of McMinnville and the school district to support an after-school program for latchkey kids. There have been thousands of kids in MAC that have gone through this program and benefited through the years. In the past, the Mayor's Ball, you may recall that event, raised funds for the KOB program, but has not done so since 2017, from what I can gather. The funds raised by the ball were given directly to KOB, which is a 501c3 organization, for the sole purpose of funding the after-school program, and that's all they have ever done with the funds. For many years, KOB ran the after-school program through McMinnville Parks and Rec. However, it is now partnered with Campfire Columbia, and there is a representative, Josh Todd is here from Campfire Columbia. He's on Zoom. And they provide services in partnership with the McMinnville School District. The school district provides a first hour of after-school care called Power Hour for intensive tutoring for students. Students not needing tutoring go directly to the Campfire Columbia program. And the district also covers the cost of snacks and busing the students home after the program is over. Currently, KOB contracts with Campfire Columbia to run the after-school program at the McMinnville schools, and the McMinnville School District contracts with Campfire Columbia to run the after-school program at Washer Elementary in Lafayette. The city of McMinnville has an IGA with MSD, the McMinnville School District, to lease space for after-school programs in 5 of their buildings. Due to a variety of factors, the KOB funding for the program has almost disappeared, and currently the fund has about $248,000 remaining. Once that is expended, there will be no more funds in that program to support the many families with children that attend after-school care. KOB covers some of the additional cost of services provided by Campfire Columbia through those funds that they have. Families also pay a fee to participate on a sliding scale in some instances, while some families receive full or almost full scholarships, either through ERDC, which is the employer, oh my gosh, my brain just went.
Related daycare.
Really, yeah, the related daycare, thank you. Or other opportunities such as collective care. And collective care is a program that Columbia offers. According to Campfire Columbia, they have 177 kids in their program and are licensed to serve over 300. So they've got capacity. About 10% of families have multiple children participating. There are 80 kids receiving scholarships. So that's about 40% of the families. ERDC families pay about $14 per month, but sometimes they are not able to even pay that amount. And Campfire Columbia either takes a loss for that or helps with additional funding from KOB, or they also have this collective care program scholarship, which allows families paying full fees for their child to attend to pay an additional amount of money. So they basically become donors to other children participating in the program. 23% of families are ERDC, and 15% receive collective care funds to assist them. On average, those utilizing collective care pay about $143 a month. KOB intends to spend down whatever funds remain in their coffers and no longer do any fundraising, allowing MSD to partner directly with Campfire to provide the services. How that will work out is not clear at this time, and Campfire Columbia has a plan and will present that to City Council and the MSD board at their joint meeting on Monday, June 17th at 6 p.m. That's what I have for you.
So I think that my microphone's not on. So I think it's an opportunity for the board to consider using ARPA funds toward a program that is already been established. These kids are, these families, significant number of families already rely on this after school care. The hours are extended to, I think, 6 p.m. For folks that do work, full-time days. And then also we talked about the summer care program. They offer a summer program where, kids aren't just sitting at home behind a locked door
It's all day.
all day.
The summer program is
Mhm.
all day, if I recall correctly.
So because of the changes with KOB and really not having a clear direction on how that's going to play out in terms of future fundraising, this is what I would call a pretty, it's a critical need, but our funds would be used to extend the program for at least a couple years is what we can gather from the amount of money that we have. It buys them more time to figure out a long-term fundraising strategy. It buys the school district a little bit more time to figure out, can we work some of this into our budget? I don't think the city of McMinnville has really talked about taking on more funding. I think that's probably not something they're considering. So, from my standpoint, this is a pretty significant sort of biggest bang for your buck investment when it comes to childcare versus some of the other things that we've been talking about and considering. We do have representatives here from Campfire. So if there's any specific questions on the program, Joy and I had a great meeting with them and talked about all of the wonderful things they do and how they integrate with the school district in terms of the services that the school district provides for tutoring after school, feeding kids snacks and making sure that they're healthy and have constant supervision after school. I was a latchkey kid, so I get it. My parents both worked full time. So are there any questions, commissioners? I know that we've kind of tossed around some different ideas with the rest of our ARPA childcare money. But yeah, I'm looking for some input.
Do you want to go ahead?
So the money that they have right now, the 248K,
Mhm.
how long will that last them?
It's a great question. So this past year, KOB gave Campfire Columbia $219,000, if I'm not mistaken, and I will defer to Josh on that because he would know better than I. But that was my recollection. That is what I was told, that they got 219, and the year before they got, I don't remember,
The discussion
150.
in the joint meeting between the school board and the city was that they basically have a year left.
Okay.
So with the current funding.
And they have a meeting coming up in June to
June
decide
17th.
what the plan is going to be going forward.
Correct.
Yeah. But this KOB money was money that was raised from the community through what was called the Mayor's Ball. It was a pretty big deal. They raised a lot of money.
Do you know roughly on average what that brought in every?
Oh,
I wanna
gosh.
say $500,000. I heard that number tossed. I
Yeah,
could
it
be
was a
wrong,
big
but it
deal.
was a lot of, well, think about it. They haven't done an event since 2017 and they have $248,000
Why would they
left.
stop
Mhm.
something like that?
This community is amazing and we know that.
Mhm.
So
Changes in leadership and changes in,
Yeah.
city council. And
Okay.
so the goal, I think, is to bring it back in some form. It was we've heard from some of the board members of KOB, it was a lot of work.
Correct.
But the goal is to bring it back and bring back some type of stable funding to help,
correct.
supplement the Campfire budget to make all this happen for McMinnville specifically.
Do we know why it's not supported through McMinnville Park and Rec anymore?
So the history. So KOB was run through Parks and Rec for up until 2016 or 17. And then is when they, and Josh, maybe you can confirm this for these dates and everything. It was a huge burden on the city, not just for staffing, but PERS and all of the other expenses that went along with that, because if it was through Parks and Rec, then they were all employees of the city. And so that was a huge expense, and KOB was looking for a way to not have those
I see.
expenses.
So it was KOB's decision to,
I'm sorry, I should say it wasn't KOB, it was the city's decision, I believe, the way I understood it, to look for another option.
And one of the things that I really love about this is the layering of investment, because we just made a significant investment in Chemeketa for a fast track program for early childhood education and
Mhm.
those types of programs. And they, Campfire is absolutely willing to tap into that pipeline of students and graduates to then hire. And they actually pay some of the highest rates for their employees and have some pretty lucrative benefits, handsome benefit packages too. So it's definitely a competitive place to work in terms of a childcare provider. So I really appreciated that they were willing to kind of tap into that investment that we've already made too.
I was wondering if anyone had contacted the CCO's Early Learning Hub. This sounds like something that would definitely fit in their portfolio for funding. They have made very clear that they have a sort of a very strategic plan that would include childcare. And here's a program that doesn't require a whole lot of admin costs, which I know in the past has been an issue when you have to stand something up and you have to build something from the ground. It's like funding a startup versus a company that is well established.
Mhm.
So I always look to the established programs because there's a whole lot less financial investment involved. So I would recommend that piece be looked at, the CCO's Early Learning Hub, and Jen Richter and Seamus and Suey Linsmeyer, who've worked on that Early Learning Hub for many years. And then I would also, just wondering, in terms of the summer care cost, is there a breakdown for that?
I do not have that with me. There, it may be in the presentation that I have from the group, but I don't have that with me. My apologies.
We can share that around.
Okay, so the
Oh.
248
Mhm.
is in terms of how long that would, is that the estimate for, that would be a year? That's another year, and then that would eat up the 248 that's left?
That's
Right.
what we are understanding, correct?
But
Um,
our,
I just have a quick question because I don't know if we've received a formal, there's a lot of numbers being thrown around, but I don't know if we've actually got a formal proposal that's been presented or added to the packet, or I don't have something as well. Was there a formal proposal that was submitted that?
no,
there
this
was-
is being completely responsive to community needs that arose in the past month. So
Okay. I just wanted to make sure we didn't miss something because I know there's a lot of discussions about numbers and what's being
Yeah.
proposed, and I haven't had a chance to review this and look at the ARPA rules as well.
right. And we did, Joy and I saw a presentation from Campfire, which was very helpful to see. So I think that we should share that with the board and put it in the packet too. But obviously ARPA dollars have a timeline on them. So I think the concept, if we were to award money, would be to have our funds sort of be spent in the first 2 years so that they're spent in the timeline. And then KOB, the board of KOB has agreed to sort of sit there and keep it open and have that $247,000 waiting to be used. Maybe it's year 3 if funds get them for another 2 years. So
What are you wanting from us today? Is this just a sort of an informative discussion so that we are all on the same page, knowing what the issue is, what the potential request is?
the goal of today is to inform the board that there is a significant need in the community and that this program serves a very large number of frankly low-income families who need childcare, and that they will be running out of money in a year. So we have an opportunity with the remaining money that we have left for childcare ARPA, and I would like it to be considered, this program to be considered for receipt of funds.
Can we get a formal proposal with some numbers and with a variety of options? So it's kind of what we did in the past with the other the other programs.
Mhm.
We have this much left.
Mhm.
With this much, what could you do? And with this much, so let's say we would break it into thirds or half. We would be able to make a decision or consider what each option would fund.
Mhm.
We've done that before.
Mhm. I can certainly do that and work with
Yeah.
the various organizations
Right.
to get that proposal together.
With what they have currently, what that funds,
Mhm.
what they would use the money for going forward. And then we also have to take in consideration the ARPA timelines and things like that.
Okay. Yeah, I think for the purposes of discussion, we have just sort of had this round number of $250,000 that it costs to supplement this program per year. So when I say this buys another 2 years, I'm making an assumption that we would be applying the rest of our childcare ARPA funds to this program.
But they have enough for 1 year. So 250 would give them
Three.
another year. So that would be 2
Correct.
years.
Yes.
And then they would have time to ostensibly figure out what their funding source would be.
Yes.
Okay, so some options on that, and then also how the summer school is kind of broken down in terms of, that's what you wanted to see.
Yeah, how much that costs, how many that serves. I know we used to have something years ago that really focused on summer to keep the kids engaged, because when they came back to school, they were just starting from scratch. So
Yeah.
there was a real engagement there. That was a program, I can't remember who it was through, but that was several years ago. And the other thing I would do is I would also reach out to the Early Learning Hub at the CCO and just see if there's any interest or what they would contribute
Sure.
to this, could
Mhm.
contribute to it.
Absolutely. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
That would be great if we could challenge them to match maybe,
Yeah,
right?
great
Yeah.
idea.
So,
Okay, very good. Anything else?
Yes.
Yes.
So,
Oh.
I have concerns with this. But I'm willing to listen to more information. So what I would want to see is that if they're going to have this presentation before city council or whatever they're preparing in June, is there any way to fast forward that and have that presentation? Because my biggest concern with this is if they don't have a plan and we're just going to stuff money at it to make it go another 3 years, we're just putting a Band-Aid on it. If they already have this plan, I want to hear what it is, because that's going to help me decide what I want to end up doing here, because I'm going for longevity here. George Fox right now, and I've been very upfront the last couple times we've talked about this. I feel good about the longevity of that, the backing that has, and what's the long-term effects I believe that's going to have for the community. So I would want to see if it's possible, if they already are preparing for this presentation in June, if it's possible for them to come and give us that presentation and do a little fast forward.
yeah.
I want to know what the
it might
plan
be.
is.
I don't know. I think that just to kind of counter that though, if they have a year left and then they run out of money, that's 177 families that have to figure something else out, and there's nowhere for them to be absorbed. So even if it's a quote unquote Band-Aid, it's still potentially 2 additional years of childcare for families that desperately need it. So
Sure.
and
I understand that. This is it's a very important thing, but the broader issues here too seem like bad decisions that have been made. And I don't know why or what. I don't know if we need to do some digging into that, but are we giving money to a program that's already based their funding off of a mayor's ball that for some reason has gone away? I mean, it sounds like it was very important to have the funding from that mayor's ball. What was the reasoning for that to go away? Or was it in connection to, they knew those funds were going to KOB? Was KOB not that important to where, or did something happen there that the mayor's ball is like, you know what, we're done. We're not going to fund this program anymore. Were there issues there? I want to know if there's like some red flags that happened in the past
I don't
that
believe so.
are now getting glossed over that we need to know about.
No, the mayor's ball was specifically designed by then Mayor Gormley. So it goes way back. And I don't know what happened in the transitioning years, but my understanding is the folks that were doing all of that work said, we just can't. It was a huge lift, and volunteers, you don't have as many. So, and this is what I've been understanding. I'm not speaking for them because this is just what I've
No, I
heard.
understand that. The problem is it creates more questions.
Yeah.
And big questions when you're talking that kind of money and why it no longer
Sure.
exists to help KOB.
Yeah. Well, maybe the KOB board chair would be willing to come talk about that too, the history of it.
Sure.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any
Thanks.
more questions?
Appreciate it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks, Troy. I appreciate it.
Of course.
Okay. So that concludes our work session, and item G is consent. There's nothing today. There's nothing under old business. Nothing I'm sorry. I is other business. I1 is review of the 2023-24 Board of Property Tax Appeals BOPTA summary. And commissioners, you've had a chance to review the documents. I don't believe we need to vote on this, right?
No.
No. Christian?
No, it's just for review.
Yeah, I don't believe so.
Okay.
But I mean, that's not how it's reflected on the agenda, but
Okay.
I'm not sure how it was submitted by the clerk, if she was asking for a formal action.
No.
Per memo, as Carrie said, no formal action is required. We just need it on the agenda and that it was presented to the board.
Acknowledge it.
Board has reviewed it.
Okay. All right, so acknowledged. And I2 is consideration of approval of an agreement between Yamhill County and Roy Hook Construction LLC for the 2024 Yamhill County Overlay Project in the amount of $2,009,368.70 effective upon notice to proceed through December 15th of 2024. And the intent to award was voted on April 11th, and no protests were filed. So do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Any further discussion?
None.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. All opposed, same sign. Great, motion passes. Thank you. I3, consideration of a letter of support for the City of Sherwood's Broadband Deployment Program grant application. Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Any further discussion?
None.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Thank you. I4, consideration of approval of the Yamhill County 2024 Competitive Grant Program. And we have Joya joining us again. She's back.
Barely sat down.
So we haven't done these in a while. So I'm excited to get these back open, especially since we're in kind of a tough borrowing climate right now for our businesses. And this is the total amount that we're looking at is 125,000
Yes.
for the grants. Okay. Okay. Did you have a presentation for them prepared?
So I do. In
Okay.
your packet, there is a basic outline of the program. So let me start with that, but you also have a press release that I've created. The document that basically talks in more detail about the actual grant program and the questionnaire as well that we have created for this program. So let me just start with, the background. We have historically offered a competitive grant program to small businesses. These funds come from lottery dollars. It has been on hold due to the pandemic and of course, ARPA funds and all these other amounts of money coming in and the CARES Act. So those have been on hold. The program itself supports innovation and sustainable growth through strategic investments and partnerships in economic development initiatives and projects that create and retain jobs, generate increased economic activity, and improve the economic and social livability and vitality of local communities. The grant has 3 funds for small business. There's a startup grant, a small grant, and a strategic investment grant. In total, the grants amount to $125,000 with 7 grants available in varying amounts. The expenditure in these funds were approved in the 2023-24 budget. The startup grant is a single grant, of $25,000 for small business that has been in business for more than 1 year, but not more than 2. In less than 2 years rather, and in the traded sector, and has not received a grant from Yamhill County in the past. The small grants are up to $10,000 for a small business with less than 25 employees and been in business for more than 2 years. And there are 5 grants available if each awardee is given $10,000, the full amount. The strategic investment grant is a single grant of $50,000 for a business with more than 25 employees and been in business for more than 2 years. We intend to open the grant cycle on May 1st. Applicants will have until May 15th to submit completed applications. Staff will send announcements and press releases about the open grant program to local newspapers, chambers of commerce, city economic development departments, county ED newsletter recipients, and other related organizations, agencies to ensure the information is widely shared. Grant applications will be available via the county's grant management program. Applicants will be able to complete their application, upload budgets and other data to the site. Once the deadline has been met, the application website will close and the applications will be reviewed by a grant review committee. The grant review committee will be made up of 5 to 11 individuals, depending upon how many applications we get. Will review, score, and recommend to the Board of Commissioners the applicants to be awarded a competitive grant. Once the Board of Commissioners has approved the grant awardees, staff will work with necessary county departments to issue the funds to the awardees. 6 months after issuance of funds, staff will follow up with each awardee to gather information on the use of funds and ensure the business has spent their funds as detailed in their application. In addition, we will do a follow-up at a year because that's what it says in the documentation. And I recommend that we move forward with this and happy to take any questions.
We are familiar with this program, maybe Kit, not so much, Commissioner Johnston. Do you have any specific questions about any of it?
I don't. It seems pretty straightforward to me.
Yeah. Okay.
One recommendation I'd like to make, if the board's going to take action on it, that we clarify, I think the way it's on the agenda is a competitive grant program. We have a lot of competitive grants that we both apply for and have awarded over the years. Just for clarity, and if there's a motion made that we just clarify it's for the 2024 Economic Development Competitive Grant Program. This is specific to economic development grants, not a general competitive grant program.
And the follow-up is really important because I know in the past we've awarded some significant amounts of money and there was no follow-up. Unfortunately, the outcome on some of those was not as we had hoped, but I guess that's sort of the risk you take.
Right.
But I appreciate the work you did getting this back up and running because it's really important now. We're just seeing our businesses are really struggling. And so as far as that committee, that review committee, I want to make sure that we're going to be drawing from a real wide variety of people who will be able to weigh in so that we're not just getting, the same players. We're getting folks from small businesses, from food trucks, from, communities that might not normally know about these types of things. And I think that we always have the same people who apply because they know how the game is played.
Right.
How about the people who don't have a clue and we can find a way to reach out to them?
Sure.
Yeah.
So the press release will go out to, as I mentioned, as many people as they possibly can. It will be posted on our website as well as the all of the documents so that folks can get to them. The newspaper will have it. I'm hoping the chambers of commerce, we've got one right here, might be able to help with that.
Wink, wink.
And get the word out to their members as well. It will go to the smaller communities, all of the economic development folks within the communities in our county. And so cities that don't have an economic development person, it will go either to the city manager or the mayor or someone that at least can share that information out.
And also, if you look at publications like the West Valley, the
Yes,
Bulletin.
yes, absolutely,
That,
yes.
that kind of,
Mhm.
okay.
Yeah,
great, thank
so
you.
publications like that, absolutely. It's already on my list.
Okay, thank
Yeah.
you.
Yeah, you bet, of course.
Yeah, we had a conversation about the committee and just trying to
Mhm.
pull from really every corner of the county to make sure that we have a broad range of representation. So
Right. And to make sure we're not actually asking a small business that would consider being on, applying for it to
Mhm.
actually be a reviewer.
Right.
So,
So just to confirm, these are allocated funds from 23 to 24. We're just now implementing the program.
we didn't.
and the plan is to have the money out before the end of the year.
Correct. The funds are fully appropriated for this year.
Okay.
Video lottery dollars,
Correct.
They are, yes.
same video lottery dollars that pay your salary.
Yes, yes, that is correct. Yes,
Thank you.
yes.
Okay, so I will move approval of the Yamhill County Economic Development Competitive Grant Program for 2024. Is there further discussion?
Fine.
Yeah.
Okay, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. All opposed, same sign. Okay. Motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Joy. I
Thank
appreciate
you
all the
so
work
much.
and
Thank
excited to see this go forward.
I
so.
know, right? Me too.
Appreciate it. Thank
It's
you.
been a while.
Yeah.
It's been a minute, but yeah, thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Okay, let's see. I5 is consideration of authorizing the sheriff's office through emergency management to submit an application for the Resilience Hub grant in the amount of $500,000. Looks like we have the sheriff with us today, as well as our emergency manager, Sergeant Young. Welcome.
Welcome.
Good morning.
Morning.
Good morning.
Thank you, Chair and Commissioners. I think you should have a memo that outlines the nuts and bolts of what this grant opportunity is. Obviously, with emergency management being housed under the umbrella of the Sheriff's Office, we're just seeking approval from the board to pursue this grant opportunity. I'm going to let Sergeant Young explain a little bit about the grant and what we're hoping to accomplish with it, if we are able to pursue it.
Hi, good morning. Thank you for having me today and let me ask for permission on this important grant opportunity. A couple of years ago, the Oregon Department of Human Services Office of Resilience and Emergency Management. That's a mouthful. We'll just call them OREM from this point forward. Got permission from the state legislature to put a grant together for $10 million for resilience hubs throughout the state of Oregon. For several years, I don't know, a dream of mine or an idea has been to try and get a funding opportunity to put a Connex box with non-perishable shelter supplies and have at least one in each city. And the reason why I think that way is in a catastrophic seismic event, we have the potential to create islands throughout the county. And what happens if we do island ourselves in this county, we could find ourselves without certain supplies and certain islands within this county. And we want to make sure that we can address those on these blue sky days when there's funding opportunities available. None of these Connex boxes with shelter supplies, and I'll get into the details here shortly, will alleviate all the needs of a shelter, nor will it be a complete shelter package where a shelter is up and running and it's going to be a perfect symbiotic relationship between facility and supply, right? No, it's not. It's to soften the impact of a sheltering environment until the subject matter experts can get there, like the Red Cross, the OREM, they offer sheltering expertise, right? And those are the folks that we would bring in to run those shelters in once they could be deployed and get here. I think on the heels of the Labor Day fires of 2020, notice I didn't say COVID, I said the fires. The state, all across the state, and the emergency management profession looked across the state at the availability of shelter workers and how taxed the system was, not only in the workers, but the supplies that were available also. So if we could get these supplies out into the public, it would be a good thing. The equipment itself, like I said, is 40-foot Connex boxes. They do have non-perishable shelter supplies, such as cots, blankets, pillows, tents, water, non-perishable food, two-way communication. I assume in this, because it's not, doesn't go into detail, ham radio, portable ham radios, that type of thing. It's got the dehumidifiers for climate control, so our equipment and the supplies stay in good sort, on down the line. So each Connex box is a typed package. They put these in types, so it's a type 4 package, is a 40-foot Connex box, and it's enough to shelter 100 people. For it doesn't give a timeline, but it's enough for 100 folks to be taken care of, at least in the initial hours. In Yamhill County, we have 7 shelter locations according to the Red Cross. And while these could go to some of those locations that are spelled out, I specifically am looking at partnering with the schools in the cities. Each school has the luxury, if you want to call it that, of having at least one school within their city. And schools are well, quite frankly, schools are the community, right? They want to be involved. They are the community in which they reside. And really, they're great partners. Every single school district was happy to jump in on this and offered letters of support within 2 days of me asking. They're pretty excited about this. It would remain, once the grant is awarded, if the grant is awarded, and I'll throw the caveat in there, we can get none, we can get some, we can get all. We don't know with the grant, right? So this grant would be available, or I'm sorry, this equipment would be available for the schools to use. And the reason why I think that is, if you think back to the Snowmageddon days or Snowpocalypse, whatever you want to call it, when folks couldn't get from Portland, right? They forget how to drive, and people get stymied up. There were parents, there were certain levels or certain number of parents at certain schools that weren't able to make it back, and the schools really scrambled to take care of those children and get them placed. And it was late into the evening for some of these kiddos. Fortunately, the schools didn't have to get into a sheltering environment, but these could offset some of those things, because I think this day and age, a kiddo is not going to go home with a caring teacher, right? That you just can't do that. The school's going to have to take care of them in some way, shape, or form. I'm happy to entertain any questions. I think you've got the gist of it. I think the biggest part, let's assume that we get this. I think the biggest part, if we don't get all of them, we'll be selecting what schools get them, because I think we might have like a UFC fight going on. They're going to be duking it out for it. So I guess real quick, I'll discuss in closing a couple of items. The ownership of this equipment would be Yamhill County. We would maintain ownership after the grant, immediately after the grant is awarded, if awarded. It becomes our property, and the reporting requirements aren't super laborious, but they are and do require a relationship between me and Office of Resilience and Emergency Management, which I maintain already, and that's in the form of coming out once a year for an inspection, which I'd love to have them just so they can see our program and what we're trying to accomplish in the community.
Thank you.
Thanks.
So my question is more about kind of the devils in the details with grants and the sustainability of some of this. And so it's clear that we would own the equipment, but in terms of where to place them on these properties, what about electricity to hook up for dehumidifiers? Who maintains that? What about security? What happens if supplies are used and then we have to replace the supplies? It's all of those sort of the devils in the details over time.
Yes,
So-
and happy to address some of those. I guess I'll start with the placement of those Connex boxes. My intent is to try and get to, I don't know what they're called in all districts, so I'm going to call them to the facilities managers. My goal is to get with the facilities managers throughout the next couple of weeks to find those spots in there and try and get spots that are close to power. The power draw in these that is required for the equipment that's in these boxes is not huge. It can be handled with an extension cord. So that's where we're gonna try and lean and direct them to get close to those items. As with any use of county-owned equipment by entities other than county employees or county and property that's stored off on other properties, right? MOUs or IGAs will have to be crafted and developed. And part of those MOUs or IGAs would talk about the use of the equipment inside. Whoever uses that equipment, whether it be the schools, whether it be emergency management, whether it be a city, a church, whoever happens to use it, that entity would be responsible for replacement, repair, cleaning, whatever it is on that supply, putting food back, resupplying the food, resupplying the water if used. So basically bringing this cash back up to whole, make it a deployable asset 100% off the go. That's covered in a legally binding document of the IGA.
Who's going to do the follow-up? I'm assuming your office and.
There you go. There you go. Yeah, that was the third question. I apologize for that, Commissioner. Yeah, the ham radio being in there gives me a great in on maintenance because I've got a group of great people that come into my office quite regularly, and they would love to go out there and check on our equipment, test the equipment, press the buttons and talk to each other. Heck, they might even find somebody across the United States to talk to from one of our schools while they're at it. So if you're not picking up on it, it's our Yamhill Aries folks,
Aries,
right?
yeah.
Our amateur radio folks. They're great folks. And I'm sure our CERT team would love to jump in there also. So there's a plethora of opportunities for that kind of monitoring of the equipment. Security, I cannot guarantee that because we can't, obviously funding doesn't come for fences. So we can't guarantee anything like that. And schools are open, while they are fenced, they are open large areas that do have people on them in weird hours of the night. Ask me how I know. We can only hope that people are stay away from and understand the importance in the community. Now, I would add or also ask as part of the IGA, because it is on school grounds, that the schools throw a rider on potentially. I don't know if since it's our equipment, if we can go through and insure it that way. Either way, there will be conversations about insurance to get it covered and make sure that we can maintain that product while it's here.
Okay.
What about the transport of the Connex box?
That's a great question. I'm going to assume that that's built in here. I could certainly follow up with Orem today and be happy to get with you offline and answer that question. I'm going to say that Orem probably does not want a big stash of Connex boxes in their parking lot, so they probably built that delivery fee into the cost of the Connex box itself.
So the $10 million, that's a statewide allocation, correct?
Yes.
What would our 10 boxes cost?
Right now, go ahead. I'm sorry.
526,460.
So this is competitive, and we have to basically just kind of throw in and hope that we've got a good enough plan.
Yeah, and this is, I'm going to say that this is a great idea, and it's not because I came up with it. There's a lot of people across the state who have these great ideas. So yeah, we're going up against a lot of great ideas, and it's going to be very competitive. There's no guarantee in this. We can hope that we can fare well in this. So, but it is a competitive across the state, and it's not known at this time whether it's going to be a one-time investment by the state legislature, or if it's going to be a every 2-year thing with every new legislative session, right? So I guess as this program develops into June and through June, I think the devil will be in the details as far as who's utilizing this program, how important this program is to the folks that are applying for it, and obviously the recognition by the legislature that maybe we should go forward with this program to pre-position assets for times of disaster, which, quite honestly, Oregon has dodged several bullets if you look at the folks around us.
Well, it's a great idea, And it's definitely needed, especially since years ago, we were involved in a group in Newburgh where they really talked about getting different assets in different parts of the city. So this is just a broader discussion, but it makes all the sense in the world. So thank you. Thank you both for pursuing this.
So this sheet that shows the breakdown, it looks like it's scalable. So what exactly are we asking for? What type?
Type 4,
Okay.
you conveniently do not have the green arrows that I put on mine, so my eyes could quickly go to it. So it is under type 4. It's 100 people, 40-foot Connex box and straight down. The costs are in that second column. These are scalable. We could knock out things in there. Maybe we don't want to mess with the water and food rotations, right? And we just want the non-perishable shelter equipment. You know, we could do that. I'm not suggesting we not put food and water in there. All I'm saying is citing that as an example of what we could do.
And Mac Water's got some water trailers, I think. So I don't know if something can work together to where you don't need a product and save some money on that if
Yeah.
Mac Water's trailers work for it.
Mhm.
I think I'm hearing two different things. I'm hearing that these will be for sort of that major disaster that we know is coming someday, but then also could be used for other events. And so it's not clear who determines when this can be used.
Yeah, I think this, anytime, from my stance, anytime a human needs assistance in the form of sheltering, I think that this equipment should or could be utilized. I think it's important enough to have that in place. Honestly, I think it would be only a few people that could really activate this equipment, because obviously it's on private property, the school, well, it's on school property, right? Not everybody has a key. You have to have buy-in, you have to have agreements with the schools, those types of things, right? Emergency management, we have those relationships. The sheriff's office have the county, we have that relationship with the schools, right? If we have community groups out there that feel the need to open up a shelter because of X, Y, or Z, we could have those discussions from there, and we could make those determinations. But really, it's not just a matter of let's just we can't just open the doors and say, yeah, we're going to spin this up just because. A shelter with this type of equipment is a disaster type shelter. It is not tied to warming and cooling centers, which aren't shelters. There's certain connotations that come with a shelter environment, whether it be feeding, medical wraparound services like mental health services, things like that, right? And warming centers, cooling centers, we typically don't have that. So this equipment is for those higher level, really human need things where people are displaced. I don't even know if I could imagine, because I've never experienced it, the having to evacuate from your home to go to a shelter. But I imagine these folks as they're traveling across wherever to get to this shelter, minutes probably feel like hours, right? And if we can pre-position this stuff closer to them, I think we're money ahead, not only for their well-being, but also just our effectiveness in response. That's where it takes those communications ahead of time, like we're having today, with the talks with the community groups, with the cities, with the non-governmental organizations, right? We have those conversations to talk about the shelter environment. The appetite for sheltering is pretty heavy or good now in Yamhill County. It's pretty neat to see that folks are seeing that, this potential is out there. I think what's really nice is I think people are realizing they don't want to be in a shelter. So if we can get on the preparedness side and get them prepared to not be in a shelter, that would be great, but it still doesn't remove the fact that we have to have shelter availability.
Okay, commissioners, any further questions, concerns?
No, Chair, I'd move approval.
I have one more question, which was kind of prompted from our chair's question. I'm assuming as we get closer to, if we end up receiving this grant and we purchase, there's going to be some form of definition on what it is that will allow access to these containers, like it's a disaster or, the definition of emergency, whether it's a wildfire, not just the school or whatever entity, it has a key to the Connex is like, you know what? We're in an emergency. We need a couple cases of water. We're going to go pop the door, grab a couple cases of water. It's not for that. I'm assuming that this will be defined and not everybody's just going to have a key. It will, be protocols that somebody calls your office and then that starts a process.
Yeah, and a simple statement in an IGA or an MOU, these supplies are not to be utilized outside of a bona fide shelter environment could cover that. And I think get it across to folks that don't go in and take stuff. I know exactly what you're talking about, Commissioner, and it could be a real problem if you don't nip it in the bud at the beginning. So it's a good thing to include in those conversations. But yeah, I don't suspect that the schools will do those things, but that behavior certainly does need to be addressed.
Sure. That's all I got.
So with the
And just a
wildfires.
reminder too, sorry,
ahead.
just to follow up on that, the IGAs would be coming back before the board as well. So you'd have a chance to review those, and I would expect, depending on the amount of the award, if we're successful, the grant agreement itself would also be coming back before the board. So there would be a couple of other opportunities for you to make sure that the level of detail you were looking for was covered. Cool. Sorry.
No problem. With the wildfires, we had people coming to the fairgrounds because it involved animals. So a different kind of emergency. But if we had these scattered at that time, how would we have used them? It seems like we didn't really need them, in terms of the resources we had at the fairgrounds. So are we truly talking about like a massive earthquake where roads are shut down and inoperable and that kind of stuff, where you're talking about, as you said, these islands of people that can't be transported in any way, or an ice storm where you have medical equipment that needs to be charged, and is it a different kind of emergency that you're envisioning using these for? Because I'm not sure, we were at the fairgrounds. I'm not sure how we would have benefited from this in that instance, because everything was coming there, right? So.
Yeah, and the folks during the 2020 wildfires in Yamhill County, we did bring in a lot of folks from neighboring counties and Yamhill County, right? The livestock owners. And I think that's the key here. The folks that we saw come into the fairgrounds were livestock owners. Generally, those folks, it's not a blanket statement, but generally those folks are more self-contained, self-proficient. They have the ability, they have RVs. I mean, this place was packed with recreational vehicles. So the need for shelter equipment was not needed. But I will tell you that there's almost 200 shelter beds, not 50 yards from where you and I spoke several times that day. So it's there in certain areas. Now it's to try and get it out into other areas where folks might need those sheltering environments and not have to drive half hour, 40 minutes to get to a shelter. I certainly wouldn't want to be that far away if I had to leave
If you
my
can
house.
even get to it.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. So the vision for these is really a sheltering facility, and it's just packed with supplies, but it's really supposed to be a sheltering.
Yeah, it is bona fide shelter. It's
Okay.
not just equipment to have that we can use willy-nilly. It's disaster related stuff. It's investment, right? It's long-term investment stuff. It's not investment for product to use immediately. It's special needs stuff.
Yep.
And we would own them going forward.
Yes, from day one.
Day one. Okay.
And no match.
Nice. It's always nice.
All right, any further questions?
None.
Commissioner Starrett made a motion to approve. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Great, motion passes. Thank you very much.
Thank you,
Appreciate
Commissioners.
it.
Thank
Thank
you. Thank you.
Okay, item I6 is consideration of adopting resolution 24-04-25-1, proclaiming April 28th through May 4th of 2024 as National Small Business Week. And Commissioner Starrett, you placed this on the agenda. Do you want to read the proclamation?
I think we should have John Olson read it.
Oh,
All right.
wonderful.
Our new
Okay.
MAC Chamber
There you
President,
go.
and he's got one there, so.
Great suggestion.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Thank you, Commissioners. My name is John Olson. I'm the President CEO of the McMinnville Area Chamber of Commerce. Today, I am joined by Heather Blankley of the Deputy Director of MEDP and Lori Robertson, co-founder of Cutting Edge Metal, one of our strong local small businesses here in Yamhill County. The Small Business Administration has designated April 28th to May 4th as National Small Business Week. They report that 33.3 million businesses in America qualify as a small business. That is 99.9% of the businesses in America, with a revenue of $16.4 trillion. And so this week is to celebrate and to recognize the contribution of entrepreneurs, business owners, and employees of small businesses, and those with this proclamation of Yamhill County. So with your permission, I will read the proclamation.
Sounds great.
Whereas small businesses are the backbone of our economy, contributing to the vitality and vibrancy of our communities, and whereas small businesses in Yamhill County, Oregon, play a crucial role in driving innovation, creating jobs, and fostering economic growth, and whereas the resilience, creativity, and dedication of small business owners in Yamhill County deserve recognition and appreciation, and whereas Small Business Week, observed April 28th to May 4th, provide an opportunity to celebrate the contributions of small businesses and entrepreneurs in our local economy. Now, therefore, the Yamhill County Board of Commissioners do hereby proclaim the week of April 28th to May 4th as National Small Business Week, and reaffirm Yamhill County's commitment to small businesses and to supporting them by shopping locally, dining at local restaurants, and utilizing local services they provide. Let us acknowledge the hard work, passion, and resilience of our small business owners and entrepreneurs, and let us continue to foster an environment where they can thrive and succeed.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Do I have a motion to approve the resolution?
So moved.
Any further comments, questions?
None.
All right. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed, same sign. Great. Thank you very much.
Thank
Do you mind
you.
if I
Thank
get a
you.
picture of
Yes,
everybody?
please. Thank you.
Okay. Oh, with all. I'll just snap one of them. You go. Yes. I'll take the pictures. Joy.
Please.
No, you go.
Yeah.
Right.
I'm gonna take a few, just in case anybody blinks.
Thank you so much.
Is this your phone?
Yes. Thank you.
Thanks. Thank you. Right. That concludes other business, and there's nothing for public hearings today, and that brings us to announcements. Just a couple quick ones. We have been continuing the discussions around House Bill 4002. Met with the DA Bradbury and our Deputy DA Kate Lynch this week, along with Sheriff's Department and most of our law enforcement departments across the county, to continue to discuss how we're going to implement House Bill 4002 and the funding that comes with it. This is not a simple process. It is very complicated. And it seems like every time we try and get to a conclusion on one thing, it opens up 10 more questions about something else. So there's nothing specific to report. I just want to say that I really appreciate all of the input and the time that all of our law enforcement officials are putting into this, and our DA. It's just really impressive that the county has come together in this way and we're focused on a solution. So more on that in the weeks ahead. We had a wonderful prayer breakfast in Newburgh that Mayor Bill Rosacker sort of heads up, and a suggestion that I made to him, because, you know, we post this stuff on social media and everybody's like, oh my gosh, I didn't know about that. I would have loved to be there. So hopefully he can extend the invitation to other mayors across the county, because I think there was a lot of feedback that they would love to participate too. But it's such a wonderful, wonderful event. Other than that, I don't have any specific announcements. Nothing?
I had a meeting yesterday as a member of the local alcohol drug policy committee, and we talked a lot about House Bill 4002. Same folks on the call, Diane Reynolds from Provoking Hope, the DA, and folks in behavioral health, talking about what we're going to do. They're anticipating an increased caseload at the DA's office, and figuring after September 1st, there's going to be a high volume. So really how to get folks to engage in treatment. That's the issue. Also had a chance to meet with the new chamber president, John Olson, and talk about how collaboration with our economic development manager, Joya Goodrum, is going to work. So I encouraged about that. Got to meet the new executive director of Homeward Bound Pets. Her name is Casey Shook, and she very impressive. She comes to us as an attorney, and also with just having finished a graduate program in animal shelter leadership. So she is going to be working in tandem with current executive director, Ronnie Vostenak, and we'll be having further discussions about the county's contract with Homeward Bound Pets in terms of sheltering. Also met with Sheridan Fire Chief Les Thomas and the board president, Tammy Height, talking about the concerns they have about being able to deliver emergency services and fire services to the West Valley. So we'll be having more discussions about how we might be able to work with them and help them shore up those services.
Great, thank you. Any further announcements other than Monday morning? We'll all be here. Camping out for almost 4 days. So look forward to that, and looking forward to seeing our 3 budget committee members too. But if there's nothing else for the good of the order, I will adjourn the Yamhill County Board of Commissioners formal session for April 24th. Nope, April 25th. Hang on. It is 11.